Well, the pressure will stay on for at least a handful of more months. Yes, the economy is slow. Yes, it's travelling at half the speed that it was a year ago. And given that the population has grown by something around 650,000 people, that tells you just how weak current conditions are.
Chris, was the 13th rate hike from the Reserve Bank an unlucky number for the economy?
It probably was a mistake. Certainly, it's been true for quite a while that inflation keeps being lower than the Reserve Bank expected it to be. And so the Reserve Bank's been raising rates in expectation of an inflation problem that was going to be more of a challenge than it's actually turned out to be. Now, to be fair, that gap is narrowing, although inflation continues to fall faster than the Reserve Bank expected. That's a smaller gap now, and it is probably fair to say that the last gasp of fighting off inflation in Australia will be a slower process. But the news there on inflation continues to be good.
With that in mind, do you think there's a case for the Reserve Bank to start cutting the cash rate sooner?
I don't. We tend to forget that on the 1st of July, which is not that many months away now, there will be a huge extra amount of money going into the economy, over $20 billion at an annual rate as a result of a tax cut. So the Reserve Bank slows down inflation, in effect, by taking money out of the economy, making it harder for people to spend. Given that the tax cut will be pushing a lot of money back into the economy, for the Reserve Bank to be adding a rate cut to that as well, in effect, tax cuts and rate cuts, both putting money back into the economy, I'd be surprised. I think they're more likely to wait until relatively late in 2024.
Well, speaking of putting money back into the economy, the Treasurer has indicated it's time to pivot to growth. How can the government support people with cost of living relief while at the same time repairing the upcoming budget?
That is really, really hard to do. The first thing, supporting people around cost of living, means spending more money. Second thing, repairing the budget and, for that matter, helping the fight against inflation, that means taking money out of the economy. And so if the government is to do both, well, it can and it arguably should do more around cost of living relief. But over and above that, it needs some combination of spending cuts and tax increases that helps the Reserve Bank, that helps the budget longer term. That is a very, very tricky ask. It's tricky on the economics. It's even harder on the politics. I agree with the Treasurer that we're getting much closer to the point in which you don't need to worry as much about inflation. You can worry about growth. I wouldn't, however, be doing that through the budget. You should, I think, let the Reserve Bank make that judgment, let the bank start to cut when it thinks it can be supporting growth.
Obviously, we have the budget. You've mentioned the stage 3 tax cuts, so potentially more money swirling through the economy there. Is there a risk that things go too far and we start to see inflation pick back up in the second half?
It's not impossible. It's why... so there is a good case for a tax cut in Australia for a range of reasons. But it is arriving in a handful of months at a time when inflation has come down very, very fast, but it is not yet defeated as a problem. So it is tricky, and it's a key reason why the government... if it does try to wrestle the steering wheel of the economy back away from the Reserve Bank, a key reason why they shouldn't overdo it. Right? There are still lingering inflation risks in Australia. For sure, the government can redirect its priorities to help those people suffering around cost of living, but at the same time it needs to be taking the tough decisions, again, cutting other spending, raising some taxes to take money back out again. Otherwise, inflation is a risk, and otherwise the Reserve Bank and the government will be pulling in different directions at the same time.
So briefly, Chris, if you were Treasurer, where would you be spending money to help with these cost of living pressures? Tax
cuts are great, but they only really affect the top half of income earners in Australia. The bottom half, those are the ones who are feeling it most. So you can do more around unemployment benefits. You can do it around rent assistance, very, very logically. Maybe some extension around utilities bills and help there. But all of that's costly. They need to find savings elsewhere in the budget to pay for that.
Chris Richardson, so great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Rachel.